This episode of Destructoid is brought to you by Carbonite. Coming up on Destructoid, we run down all the good news from Nintendo's Nintendo Direct thing that they do, all the bad news from THQ's properties all getting auctioned off, very sad. Plus, Aliens Colonial Marines needs to learn how to use its inside voice. Get the full story right now on Destructoid Live.
Welcome to Destructoid. I'm Tara Long.
And I have sunk to a new low.
You really have.
I'm wearing a cape on my show about video games.
I know. I'm the woman. I should be wearing a cape.
I am 26 years old.
I'm the one talking about No Kuni today.
I wanted to wear a cape. Somebody asked in the comments, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I did a review for No Kuni over on the Rev3 Games channel, and I wore the cape in the video, and someone was like, you should wear the cape on the D-Toy show, and I was like, I like the way he's thinking. That's a good idea.
I like the cut of your jib.
Yeah, I like the cut of your cape.
This one's for you,
child-sized.
Random internet guy.
Anyway, it's Friday.
So news happened this week.
We're having fun. Yeah, lots of busy things happen. For starters, there's good things. We're gonna get to bad things later, but for starters, good things. One of the good things that took place this week was Nintendo's Nintendo Direct extravaganza. Those press conference things they do like every 2.5 months, where they sometimes announce stuff. And this time, they kind of announced some things. I'll get all the boring stuff out of the way first. There's some new Miiverse stuff coming. Verified accounts will now be a thing. So if you're following a guy on there who says he's Reggie Fils-Aimé, and he's actually Reggie, and he's gonna get like a little green thing on his buddy icon, so you can tell that that's not just a guy pretending to be Reggie. Important things in the Miiverse. Miiverse is also coming to smartphones, as was promised way back in June. It's going to be accessible through a web interface initially, via a browser, a computer browser, and then there's going to be a dedicated app coming to smartphones eventually. So when you're sitting in class, wishing you were playing games online using your Wii U, you can now pull out your telephone and stare at all your friends who are playing games online, because there is still no word on when the Miiverse will be coming to the 3DS. That is Nintendo's device that has online capability and is portable. The Wii U's firmware will be getting 2 updates, one in spring and one in summer. These are supposed to improve the system's speed at launching games and returning to the main menu. One firmware for each of those improvements. I'm not joking. Following the spring firmware update, the Wii U is going to be getting its own version of the Virtual Console. The full library will not be available at launch. Players who already downloaded Virtual Console games on Wii will not automatically be able to re-download them. You can transfer them over from your Wii, I think, but you still have to buy them, sort of. You get a discount. NES games are going to be reduced to $1 from the regular price of $5, and SNES games are going to be reduced to $1.50 from $8. Everyone got really mad about this, but you have to realize this is like updated Virtual Console games for the Wii U, so they now run on the gamepad and got like better saving or something. Yeah. So you're getting sort of you pay like $1 and you get some improvements, basically.
You can also always transfer your Wii games over and then play them through the Wii channels.
And you can now play Yoshi's Cookie on the gamepad while you're doing the poops. So moving on to actually interesting Nintendo news. Speaking of Yoshi, a new Yoshi game has been announced called Yarn Yoshi, which features the beloved dinosaur as he's never been seen before, made out of yarn.
Oh.
Yeah, that's cute, I guess.
I bet you could find that on Etsy, actually.
Probably, that's true, actually. He's been seen like this before on Etsy. The game's being developed by the guys who did Kirby's Epic Yarn, and it would surprise me very much if people didn't just call this Yoshi's Epic Yarn moving forward, because that's a better name for it.
Is there anything else you can call it? I mean,
Yarny Yoshi?
Yoshi's Yarn Land.
I don't know.
Ooh,
yeah.
I like that one.
This is terrible. So I'm actually interested in that, but I think I just want to see like a claymation Yoshi.
That would be really awesome.
Is that just totally 1995 of me, or I don't know? I think
it fits with Yoshi a little bit better than yarn.
I don't know why you'd make a dinosaur out of yarn. That's weird. Next, there's something very cool. This is very exciting. Everyone's really excited about this, unless they're not and they're angry about it instead. It's an HD upgrade to The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Nintendo is taking the classic GameCube title and adding shadows and bloom lighting effects and nice textures, as well as technical tweaks and gamepad compatibility, because it's now a Wii U game. When it came out, Wind Waker's cell shading, I remember this was a big bone of contention for a lot of gamers. It's very, very divisive, and everyone was like, Link looks like he's made out of construction paper. I want him to be dark and adult. Why is he a child? But I think a lot of people also really look back on it fondly because the cell shading has aged pretty gracefully. I still think the HD version looks pretty good. I'm excited about it, but I think it's kind of overstepping its bounds. It doesn't really need to have those textures and shadows and lighting and stuff. They need, like, look at Jet Grind Radio. That is a cell shaded game from the same era, and they upscaled that to HD, and it looks pretty good still, because that's the beauty of cell shading, is that it just kind of enlarges easily. You just gotta, tighten up the graphics in level 3. We got a look at some wonderful 101 stuff. I guess it's sort of wonderful. It's got little guys and some monsters. And then we got a trailer, sort of, not really, for Bayonetta 2. It's actually kind of a behind-the-scenes thing. You could see what she would look like.
Those shoes are amazing.
Those shoes are pretty amazing. I will give her that. But yeah, it's a lot of unrendered butt cheeks and stuff like that, because that's what you might want to see. Not really a cool trailer, but sort of a dev diary, I guess. Anyway. Then there was a bunch of stuff to sort of please the weeaboo crowd, and I use that term very lovingly. I'm wearing a cape, guys. Give me a break. Shin Megami Tensei Crossed Fire Emblem. So many syllables, and so many people are losing their shit over it. This is still in development. We don't really know anything about it. We know that it is Nintendo and Atlus working together. Destructoid's resident superfan, Dale North, speculates it'll likely be a Wii U release and guesses that it's going to be something tactical. The game is being developed, like I said, with Nintendo and Atlus, and Satoru Iwata says that it is an example of Nintendo's new approach for game making, working with studios, apparently. Speaking of which, Nintendo and Monolith Soft showed off a new RPG that shows off some gameplay involving some monsters and some numbers coming out of them, and then there's some big robots and like a sword, and there's like a big mech that you can get in, and then look at this, he's getting in a mech. I like this part.
This part's actually really
I was
cool.
kind of not interested, and then that happened, and then I just got like a raging Gundam boner.
Yeah.
And then at the end you see a big red X, which would suggest that it is a Xeno something game, or Xeno. I don't know how you are supposed to pronounce that, but I mean, Xenosaga or something. I don't know. We don't know. It just says X, so working title is a single letter. That's good for search engine optimization. As for the stuff we really wanted to hear about, like Mario or a new Zelda game or Super Smash Bros., we're going to have to keep waiting for that. Iwata said that there's a new Zelda in the works, but it is a long way off, and we're told that there are going to be a new playable Mario Kart, and where they're going to be showing off a 3D Mario game at E3, and those are probably going to be Wii U games, and that we're also going to get some screenshots, everybody, for a new Super Smash Bros. But in the meanwhile, just Zeldas, don't even ask about Zelda. They're still working on it. It's a long way off.
I feel like Nintendo does this every Nintendo Direct they have. They're always like, man, we've got some really awesome stuff coming up, but here's some other things we can show you that are not nearly as exciting.
Yeah, this is what happens when you do a press conference every 2 months. You don't have a lot to say for yourself.
Then again, I'm not that into JRPGs, so people who are probably really excited by this.
That's excited for a lot of people, so.
So, moving on to another game. Last week I had, actually before we get into another thing, it's important that we mention Casual Friday because we talked about Nintendo Direct's presentation on this week's episode.
This is a very special, very revolutionary Casual Friday because we didn't have beer because we had to shoot it in the morning. So we had coffee and we both talked really fast.
Yeah.
And Adam was there too.
Yeah.
So
also, I took a bunch of Adderall right before. So I'm crazy out of my mind.
Just talking about things. Totally casual. Totally casual.
Totally casual.
Not formal.
All right, so back to my next story. Last week, I had the great pleasure of stopping by Maxis' studios to get my first ever hands-on with SimCity, which, by the way, is just a few short months away from release now. They basically led us through the tutorial, and then we had a couple hours to just sort of play around and make a city and do whatever we want. First impressions, it's definitely a lot different than previous SimCity games for a few different reasons. One, the Glassbox engine. Obviously, this makes the game look completely different. SimCity's not, really known for being a visually outstanding work of art or anything, but the Glassbox engine in combination with the tilt-shift art style just makes everything pop, and the game looks absolutely gorgeous.
Also, if your city is entirely skyscrapers and neon lights, that will make it pop as well.
Yes.
Or if everything's yellow.
That's a zone.
Okay, sorry.
They've even added color filters, interestingly. So you can actually apply color filters to make your city look vintage, which is really cool. That's my favorite option. They also have one called Black and Red, which makes everything look kind of like SimCity. Get it?
Yeah.
SimCity?
I was gonna go with Simstagram.
Simstagram, yeah, that also works. They actually also have 3 colorblind options in there even, which apparently were added because the studio's QA lead is colorblind, so that's kind of cool. The engine also changes the way you interact with the game as well. So, for example, instead of just zooming in on an area to see, what's going wrong, you can now click on a little notification that'll pop up above a structure, and that will trigger a little cutscene for certain events. Not quite like a cutscene because you can still interact with the game, but it just kind of refocuses on what structure you're clicking on. Lots of little touches like that, things that are made possible by the Glassbox engine that really go a long way towards making this feel like a game rather than a simulation. And of course, the other big difference between this and previous SimCities is the gameplay, obviously, which is, I'm not gonna lie, a little overwhelming at first, just because of the sheer amount of information that you're bombarded with. Now, instead of just being able to lay down a coal plant and build your city around that, or do it however you want, really, you have to consult your data layers first, because each one of those shows you important information about where the optimal place is to build certain structures. So obviously you don't want to build a coal plant where there is no coal. So things like that. You also have to be a lot more cognizant of your road layout this time around. And guys, trust me, just because you can build curved roads doesn't mean you should. Yes, they are less restrictive in terms of layout, but they also take up a lot of unnecessary space, as I learned. So there's definitely things you have to consider now that you never did before, and it's kind of a balancing act. With regards to multi-city play, I was not able to get too much time with that, but from what I can tell, it looks pretty awesome, and it's not intrusive at all, so you can turn it off and never play with anyone ever if you want. Overall, I am super impressed with everything that Maxis has accomplished on the game so far. Even with all the changes that they've made, it still feels like a SimCity game at the end of the day, and one that I am more excited than ever now to lose several weeks of my life to, which I'm sure will happen. So if you guys want more information, and we also have more gameplay footage aside from what we just showed you, you should head over to youtube.com/rev3games. I did 2 interviews that went up live this morning, one with the creative/art director Ocean Quigley, who has one of the most amazing mustaches I've ever seen in real life. And the other one is with the lead designer, Stone LeBrandy. Both of them did those voiceovers for the SimCity gameplay walkthrough videos that you've probably seen up on YouTube. So I encourage you to check those out. And last but not least, Destructoid's Hamza Aziz also put up his written preview of his time with the game, which is up on Destructoid.com right now. He also had a wonderful time with it. Those roads will really get you, man. Curved roads.
They're a danger.
I didn't think it would be so difficult.
Themselves and other types of roads.
It's really cool, though.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked about this. I'm curious to give it a shot. Now, completely shifting gears from a game about building a city to a game about shooting aliens in the face with guns, Gearbox and Sega's very patiently anticipated Aliens, Colonial Marines, is coming out in a few weeks, and yesterday we got a new trailer for the game, which shows off some really cool new visuals, but really nothing that's too surprising because the game is like 2 weeks away and it's just some aliens getting shot in the face with guns. And the thing is, we wouldn't probably be talking about this, but it's got like the most terrible, god-awful drill sergeant just shouting over it, like spouting cliched, badass, motivational drill sergeant lines over dubstep background wub. So it's just like, Jesus. You had us at Aliens. You don't need to do that. Mikey Newman, who is the writer of Colonial Marines, and he's very proud of that. He also worked on Borderlands 2. He's a cool guy. He chimed in on Twitter to say that none of the trailer's dialogue is actually from the game, and he had nothing to do with the trailer, and his tweet has since mysteriously disappeared after a few gaming news sites ran with that detail. Now, I want to show you guys the trailer, but I don't want to force you guys to sit through that drill sergeant shouting at you. So we're gonna play you the Aliens trailer with the sound turned off, and I'm gonna actually read the official press release for a different game that I insisted we talk about called, it's an erotic card game for adults, and it's called Boob Wars, Big Breasts versus Flat Chests. This is an actual game that we reported on Destructoid.com, the website, just to clarify. So without further ado, let's do this. Okay. At the beginning of the 22nd century, an anomaly began occurring in the bodies of women. All the women of the world became either E-cups and up, or A-cups and under, big breasts and flat chests. By their division into these two groups, the debate over which was superior began. After the first incident of armed conflict, known as the Wuhan tragedy, the entire world was split between the big breasts and the flat chests, and an intense conflict ensued. 87 years later, the secret organizations of Eris, Eagle, has ordered our protagonist Takamaru Manabu to pursue the mission of his career. Seduce Queen Milk Eliado of the Big Breast Tribe and Queen Teresa Premadasa of the Flat Trest Tribe and bring this war to a close.
Wow.
Yeah. Aliens Colonial Marines coming February 12th and Boob Wars available now for download from mangagamer.com. Adults only.
It's so appropriate that you said all of that in the Duke Nukem voice.
That's what I said to Mikey on Twitter. I was like, I'm really excited for Aliens Colonial Forever or something, and it's I secretly hope that they actually do have a Colonial Marine or a Marine in the game who is just Duke Nukem, and they're just like, hey, it's and it's like Nukem, like spelled like Nukem, but they're like, hey, Private Nukem, and he's like, yeah, what do you want? I'm over here playing with a poop. I was staring at your butt cheeks earlier. Yeah.
That would be really funny if they did that, actually. Some questions.
Why are you doing this right now?
Aldridge517 said, does Detoid plan on reviewing Aliens Colonial Marines?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean,
yes.
we probably will be doing our review on Rev3 Games
We do
channel.
all of our reviews on Rev3 Games now, which we talk about all the time, so you should know what it is.
But yeah, Destructoid, I guarantee you Jim Sterling is going to be reviewing that because he's a huge Aliens fan. And he's been talking about that for ages. Yep. What else? Anything good? You want to just talk about Ni no Kuni?
Look at some questions. Okay. I'm going to talk about Ni no Kuni.
You know that's where my cape's from.
Yeah, thank you.
Can we talk about my cape?
No.
All right.
So Ni no Kuni has been topping the charts this week. All over the world, people are falling in love with this game. Unfortunately, now it's making headlines for a somewhat different reason. People who purchased the highly coveted Wizards edition of the game started reporting a few days ago that their orders had been messed up, with issues ranging from weird credit card charges to canceled orders. Some people even paid for the thing and then just never received it. No cancellation notice or anything. So as of right now, it seems like this is only happening to people who purchase directly from Club Namco rather than a third-party retailer like Amazon. And Namco is now admitting that they oversold their stock, and they have advised that anyone who pre-ordered the game from them after January 17th won't be receiving a copy now or ever. That is apparently the day that they ran out. To make the story even more infuriating, it looks like an eBay user by the name of Play Canada pre-ordered over 220 copies of the limited edition despite the website denoting one per customer, and is now selling all of them on eBay for 4 times the asking price, $400 a pop. These go for $100 originally, which is a far cry. Now, this news would be bad enough on its own, but it gets worse. It gets worse, Max. Some people are now accusing the distributor of the Wizard Edition, which is a company called Digital River, of conspiring with Play Canada to buy up a bunch of copies of the special edition and then gouge the price up to make more money. Apparently there's a few suspicious things in there that make people feel this way. Neither Namco nor Digital River has addressed this issue other than to simply apologize, chalk it up to a website error. I think Namco gave some people a $20 coupon for their website. Meanwhile, concerned fans have started a Facebook support group called Ni no Kuni Wizard Edition Pre-Order Complain. Which is the most Japanese thing I've seen today besides that game.
I wish they had localized their Facebook page.
So they can now complain together and share information about their mutual injustices, which, as we all know, is why Facebook was created. So
I will say that that seems like petty griping, but that is a really nice collector's edition.
It really is, and it sucks for people who pre-ordered it, especially for people who paid for it and haven't gotten it and haven't gotten reimbursed yet either.
And that was they had like a weird kind of Kickstarter sort of type of donation thing, not donation, but they were like, how much will you? Or they were like, how many people want to pre-order it? And the more people who pre-ordered it, supposedly the more copies they were gonna do. Like I think they had an amount they had to do.
Yep.
So,
yeah, that dude's still selling them on eBay. People are buying them. People really want that Wizard Edition.
I can't blame them.
Yes.
Speaking of making that money, let's take over from our sponsor.
Let's do that. Everyone has important files they need to protect, and that is why Carbonite Online Backup exists. Carbonite protects your pictures and other important files and documents from any kind of computer disaster you could imagine. Even better, it automatically backs them up in a safe and secure offsite location, so you never have to manually back up again. You can even access your backed up files privately from any computer or on your smartphone or iPad with a free Carbonite app. With Carbonite, unlimited backup space for your PC or Mac is just $59 a year. Start your free trial with no credit card required at Carbonite.com with the offer code Destructoid, and you will get 2 months free if you decide to buy. Again, that is Carbonite.com, and the offer code for 2 months absolutely free is Destructoid. All right, back to video game show. So this Tuesday was arguably the most significant day in gaming of 2013 so far, and unfortunately not for the best of reasons either. THQ held their bankruptcy asset auction, and now that the reality of their death has sunk in, it's time to move on. Look towards the future. Just somewhere over there, I guess. CEO Jason Rubin sent an email out to all of THQ's employees right after the auction this week, thanking them for their service and dedication to the company and letting them know exactly where each of THQ's studios and franchises will end up. So, for starters, Relic Entertainment, who is the Canadian studio behind Company of Heroes and Warhammer 40K, now belongs to Sega. This was the most expensive acquisition of the whole deal. It cost Sega $26.6 million. Interestingly, the second highest bid was from ZeniMax Media, aka Bethesda, for $23.3 million. So they almost got that, but they didn't get anything in the end. The second most expensive purchase was by Koch Media, which is the company that owns Deep Silver, who, as I'm sure you know, developed Dead Island and other games like Nailed. They also paid a whopping $23 million for Volition's studio, which, as I'm sure you know, are the guys behind Saints Row, as well as another $5.8 million for the Metro franchise. Ubisoft actually also bid on both of those, but did not win out in the end, so at least we know Metro has a home now, at least, and Saints Row, although I don't think people had many doubts about that one. Ubisoft did, however, acquire THQ's Montreal studio and the rights to South Park Stick of Truth for $5.7 million combined. Strangely, neither of those properties got any bids from anyone else. So Ubisoft went out there. Meanwhile, the Homefront franchise was purchased by Crytek for a measly $500,000, which makes sense since we already knew that they were working with THQ on Homefront 2 anyway. And hey, now they own it for a reasonable price. Can't beat those sales. One of the biggest surprises, I think, was Take-Two Interactive paying $11 million for the rights to Evolve, which I actually hadn't even heard about until I heard that this happened. Apparently this is a co-op action shooter from Turtle Rock Studios, who helped develop Left 4 Dead. Unfortunately, only the franchise was purchased and not the actual studio. So the fate of Turtle Rock Studios employees is still kind of up in the air. Speaking of unemployment, Vigil, the creators of the Darksiders games, did not make it out of this deal alive, it seems. I don't know how or why this happened, but they're the only ones who didn't receive any bids for either their studio or the Darksiders games, which is honestly really sad and disappointing. I love Darksiders franchise. It was easily my favorite of THQ's, so I was particularly broken up about this. The lead combat designer posted a really emotional goodbye letter also on NeoGAF the day that this happened, which I recommend reading only if you have a few tissues nearby, because it's actually quite sad. Last but not least, the WWE series held its negotiations outside of the formal auction, apparently, so nothing's been officially published with regards to that yet and where exactly it's going, but there have been some rumors floating around that Take-Two Interactive is also going to be acquiring that. So, as you can see, a lot has happened in the past week. Some of it good, some of it absolutely devastating. I personally just want to extend a thank you to everyone who has worked at THQ. You know, you guys have dedicated your lives and your work to creating games for other people to enjoy. And even if we don't particularly enjoy a specific game, there's somebody out there who has. So if you or someone you know was a victim of layoffs from THQ, I recommend hopping on Twitter and checking out the hashtag THQjobs. People have been using that a lot to try to find, new positions for a lot of these laid off developers to get in. So feel free to direct people to that, and hopefully it can help find somebody a job.
I hope that there's no weird sex position called a THQ job.
THQ rim jobs.
That's not good. Well, you'd probably still find, again, THQ, Saints Row, probably.
So
that's a bummer.
I guess the lesson learned from all of this is
don't video games.
Put purple dildos in your game, and somebody will want to buy you.
Yeah, there's actually Jason Rubin, the CEO, tweeted a rather I don't know if touching is at all the right word, but it was a photo of him like walking out of THQ with the big penetrator dildo over his shoulder. He's like, got my personal effects. Like,
was it like a knapsack tied to the end of it, like a hobo?
That would have been really terrible. I don't think it would support it. Would have just flopped off.
Oh my gosh.
Do we have any questions or comments? Some of our viewers have pointed out it is Australia Day, or probably yesterday was Australia Day, or tomorrow is Australia Day, because I know wherever you guys are. I mean, I know if you're in Australia, you're in Australia. I know where that is. I've seen a map before. Happy Australia Day, Australians. That is how we wish you things.
Yes. 148 Simmons says, FYI, the lead in THQ Montreal used to work in Ubisoft. That will be an awkward welcoming. Yes, it will be. Yeah. That should be interesting. Beast42078, wonder what they will do with Homefront 2. Don't personally care myself.
Yeah, Homefront was a bad game. That wasn't a good game. But I mean, Crytek has made some cool stuff, so should be interesting to see what they do with it.
So Hannings said Darksiders may be bought by Platinum Games. Interesting. I hadn't heard that yet.
I don't know if that's. I think you might have maybe perhaps misread that. I saw something on Reddit about that or something. And one of the guys who worked there was I think it was the guy who wrote the letter was tweeting about he was like he sad he lost the job, and there was some exchange with other people, and they were like, hey, we're looking for people, and that's just. I think that's one guy who might get hired. I don't.
Oh, so it's not like an official acquisition or something?
Jeepers, how do these rumors happen?
That would be cool, though. I mean, if they didn't get any bids, then theoretically, any bid they put in, no matter how cheap, should win, right? I mean, it's too late for a formal auction now, but as Jason Rubin made it seem in that letter he sent out that there was still possibly a future in store for Vigil. He was like, we're still going to try to find buyers, but. Again, I haven't heard anything, and I don't know what the official process for something like that is. So.
That's such a bummer, though. That sucks.
It's so sad. Yeah. I'm so sad about Darksiders. I'm really glad that everybody else there found work, but
yeah, we get big fussy things about video games, but it's like these are people who have they have homes, they have families, and now they don't have jobs. So let's all wish the best for them.
Yes.
Pour out a 40 for the fate of THQ.
I will do that when I get home tonight.
Anyway, I will pour out a 40 in my mouth. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today's show. We're back here on Tuesday with presumably more video game news, unless there is none, in which case we will make it up because we are journalists. You can go follow us on Twitter for our nonsense and snarkiness and troublemaking and handsome buddy icons. I'm Max Scoville, she's Tara Longest, and together we are The Detoid Show. We love you guys. Have a safe and wonderful weekend. Wear some capes. Don't do any crimes.
Say goodbye to this cape, because Max had to promise our producer that he would never wear it on the show ever again.
Got to wear a cape and talk about tits. This is my real job, Mom.
Video games.